All right, this is D back with another video on You Can Be Free. I got a special guest with us today. This is somebody, since I've been doing this recordings on You Can Be Free, I've never had anybody on my channel that actually knew who I was, the old D, BC, before Christ. And so this is somebody that I've known for a long time. She knows the old me. She knows the new me. I know the old her and I know the new her. And last night, she blessed my ministry. We had a midnight prayer call, and this woman went off. And I'm telling y'all, when she went off, she got down last night. She has such a gift with prayer and intercession, even flowing in the prophetic, word of knowledge, word of wisdom. I just want to thank you for your time. I'm excited to hear your testimony, even though that I know it. It's one of those things that like I can hear over and over again, because even though I didn't see all of this, some of the stuff that you're going to be talking about, I was actually there in some points.
Yeah.
So yeah, just flow, start at any point that you want to start with. I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Well, I think I want to say first is that the things that I'm going to say are a little bit hard, but I just want everyone to know that I'm free. I'm completely free. I've been completely set free. So none of this stuff that I'm going to say is kept me bound, So let's just jump into it.
Okay.
My name is Kayla. I am a godly mother of 3 beautiful kids. And my biological father, his name was Randy, and my mother was named Dorothy. And my dad really suffered from mental disorder. He suffered from schizophrenia. So mainly the 3 people that I witnessed him talk to was the Antichrist, this guy named John, and this guy named no, it was a woman. It was another woman. And I've interacted with my father a couple times, but when I was younger, I didn't, because my mom divorced him when I was a really young age. But that being said, my father's side is sex offenders. My father, there's sexual sin and perversion on my Nicholson side of the family. And my father's mother was actually a nanny in a prostitution ring, a highly paid prostitution ring. And I just remember my granny Reba talking about this stuff when I was younger, and it didn't really make sense. But now that I've gotten older, I'm like, that's where that sexual sin part of it came from, was the prostitution. So when I was 3 years old, I was actually, the first time that I was sexually abused, I was at, and I'm saying this apartment name because it does a full circle, but I was sexually abused at these apartments called Rainbow Acres, and you know what I'm talking about. And these boys held me down and sat on my chest and held me down and messed with me sexually. And I didn't know what happened. I kind of just thought that was a thing. I don't really know what happened. But shortly after that, I was sexually molested.
Were they grown men or teenagers, or?
No, they were like teenagers.
Okay.
They were teenagers. Yeah, they were teenagers. And but the next person that sexually molested me / rapes me was it was my dad's brother. And I just remember going into a back room, but everything else just was a blur. And now that I've kind of walked through this, I've seen the Lord's hand on that, because actually what happens in trauma is your brain will completely switch off, and it's a protection mechanism. So really, instead of me knowing what he did to me, my brain was actually protecting me. So, which I ended up, healing from that, which is further in my story. But during that time, I never said this to you, but during that time, I was having really bad nightmares of Satan dressed in a clown outfit. And I'm 3. I don't even know who Satan is, but he was dressed in a clown outfit and he was hysterically laughing at me. And I would have these dreams every night. every single night. And I remember waking up in the apartment that my parents lived in, my stepdad and my mom, and our carpet was orange. And I just remember it being fire. I knew that the carpet was fire, and I was so scared to get off my bed. And I would wet the bed. And another thing I want to talk about that is the signs of trauma with children would be wetting the bed.
That's right. I heard about that.
It would be wetting the bed. And I remember wetting the bed a lot and having these dreams and these nightmares. And I finally told on him. My parents called the police. He got arrested, but the charges didn't stick. He ended up getting away from it because I was so young. And honestly, right after it happened, I couldn't remember it. Like, it was just like, I just couldn't remember it. And for a long, long time, I thought I lied about it. That's how much I could not remember, which, I said the Lord showed me later on in my healing journey. So through that, we ended up, I got older, and my aunt, who was like a second mom to me, married a man that actually sexually abused my little sister mostly, but he was very inappropriate with me. He did it for months, and he did it in a way where it was deceptive. He would act like he's tickling me, and really he was touching me. And he did things to my sister that were very not okay. But we ended up telling on him, and this really crippled my family. And for a long time, my aunt didn't believe me, but Brian, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. He ended up getting a lie detector test, and he failed it. And that's when it kind of just broke. And my aunt eventually ended up remarrying, but we never went through any counseling or anything like that. I just kind of still went, it was stuffed, which is a very dangerous thing to do, especially with trauma like that. So as I got older, I became a teenager. I became completely sexually involved with other people, and which leaded me, I started cutting my wrist really bad. And I would cut my wrist every single day. I mean, I would cut it from like here all the way down. And my mom at the time was, she was physical with me, but honestly, I was so out of control as a teenager that I don't think she just didn't know what to do with me, So that's when I actually went to the mental hospital for the first time. So I went into a mental hospital, and I stayed there for days. I think I stayed there for about a week. And after that mental hospital, looking back now, that was the best parenting that my parents ever did, was put me in that mental hospital. And I ended up, some things broke. I ended up getting away from a couple things. And that's when I met my son's father. And when I met my son's father, I started just being really, really inactive, active in the drug life, the drug scene. It was just a high. It was a high to me, the hype of it, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And I started partying a lot. And this is kind of where you play in, and, we were just partying all the time. And as a teenager, I never showed this, but as a teenager, of us all being together and people fighting and stuff, it scared the crap out of me most of the time. I still think back, and I'm just like, man, I was 15 years old, and I should have been in high school worrying about grades, but I was learning how to throw up crip signs. Honestly.
Right.
And that just kind of escalated to other things. And I ended up getting pregnant with my first son, Braden. And right after Braden, me and his dad split up. And that's when I was a senior in high school, and I got addicted to Oxycontin. And when I got addicted to Oxycontin, shortly after that, that's when I started stripping in Nashville. When I started dancing in Nashville, looking back, that's what opened the door to the prostitution. I started making quick money, and it was a pool that I couldn't even describe. Like I was in love with it. I loved the attention. I loved getting on the stage and doing like my own acts. Like it was all eyes on me, and I made really good money. So I ended up getting away from it, and that's when I started not fully, but I would, sell my body to men and make pretty good money. And then a little bit after that, that's when I'm just going to jump right in. That's when I caught my 9 indictments. I ended up being with Adeline's dad. I was highly addicted to pills, and I caught 9 indictments. I was on the news, and I went to jail, D, for like 2 years. And I remember walking into the jail, and well, let's go back. When we got caught, when we were on the news, I just remember being like, this is a lot bigger than what I'm thinking. And the feds came in the hotel, they beat down the door, and they ripped, right when they came in, they ripped my babies out of my hands. And I knew, D, that I wasn't going to see my kids for a really long time. I knew it in that moment, that I lost them. One of the coldest moments that I've ever had to experience was laying in a booking room floor, withdrawing so bad, and knowing that I just had these precious babies that I loved so much but didn't know how to love ripped from me. But after those 2 years, that's when I really heard the Lord's voice for the first time. I was able to get into a place where I could actually get alone without distractions. And that's when I heard the voice of the Lord for the first time. And man, I fell in love with it instantly. I was on fire in jail. I mean, I was laying hands on people in jail. I was on fire. And when I got out, I got into Doors of Hope, which is a recovery program in Murfreesboro. And I started going to my church. And that's when I met Miss Jenny, and which is, I'll explain more throughout my story. But she started doing Bible study with me. And I tapped into the supernatural power of worship. And I started just worshiping. And that's how I fought for a while. But you know what? I still went back, and we said this to each other. I still went back because I was unhealed. I was unhealed of that trauma from a little girl, the trauma that I couldn't even remember. So it's like, how do you get healed from something you can't even remember, And so I got out. I ended up getting pregnant with Aviana, and I went back. I started living at Rainbow Acres again. And when the first place that I've ever been touched by a boy, I started living at Rainbow Acres again. I had Aviana. She was in ICU, highly addicted, and I was going to lose her. DCS got involved. They were showing up. They were giving me drug tests. They were coming into my house. I had people living with me. That were using. So I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I love this story because this is where the miracle happens. And I really feel like I was introduced to an angel that day. I was selling a washer and dryer, and the guy, he was a little Hispanic guy, he called me, and he was just so interested in this washer and dryer. And, I almost didn't go because of how interested he was. I was like, is this a setup? So I went back to Rainbow Acres, and this little Hispanic man jumped out of his truck before the truck stopped. And he came up to me, and the first question he asked me was, do you believe in the Lord? And I was just like, yeah. And I was like, the washer and dryer is in here. Let's go, So I walked into a bed bug infested apartment. It had holes in the floor. And he looked at me again, D, and he said, do you believe in the Lord? And I had people in that little apartment, and I said yes, and instantly he laid his hands on me, and I fell out, and I started praying in tongues. And D, he did not even know my daughter was in the hospital. He barely spoke English. So he took my hands, he took them to the sink, and he started praying over my hands. And he looked at me and he said, take these hands and go pray over your daughter. So I'm driving to the hospital. I think I have holy hands. I'm like driving like this. I don't want to touch my hands to the hospital. And I'm a mess, right? I walk in, I'm like, I got to wash my baby. Where's she at? So I washed her, and I still remember the day, the little hairs on her back when I was washing her. And I don't even know what to say, and that same morning, Aviana was completely released because she was healed from the addiction. I got to the amount of money to move into a new apartment just off those washer and dryers. And DCS called me. I mean, one after another, 1, 2, 3. DCS called me and said, you can have your baby. We're closing the case. So I walked out of that, and I knew it was the Lord, and I still believe that was an angel. But what happened with that is the place that was supposed to be tormented to me ended up being the miracle. So when I think about Rainbow Acres, I think about the miracle. I don't think about the torment. So that's what the Lord does. He switches that out. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So, I was on fire, of course, and I was going to church, but like I said, I still went back. Because I was unhealed of some things, So, I'm just going to jump to this last time, because I was in and out of church. I was fighting. I could never be set free. I didn't really understand it. COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I started dabbling into heroin. And eventually I started smoking some meth. And COVID hit. They were giving us all those checks, and I was taking those checks and just spending it all on dope. Eventually I got to a point where I called a good friend of ours. And she and her and Robert ended up taking Aviana for me while I tried to go get help. And which I love them so much, that. And
They're good people.
Yeah, they were my people. I know they were like, Candace was like, I don't know why D ain't asked you to be on the podcast yet. But anyways, I got Avi taken from me. She jumped from Candace to my aunt, and I started shooting up. And when I started shooting up, everything went fast. I lost my car. Well, I lost my trailer I was living in. I lost my job. I lost everything. I ended up moving out to Ashland City. And when I moved out to Ashland City, well, let's back up real quick. Before I went into shooting up, I went to church one good time. And when I went to church, a pastor called Tim Green, I love him to death, but he pulled me out of a congregation. And, I really didn't understand the spiritual gifts back then, but he pulled me out of the congregation. He looked at me and he said, you're going to be set free. And he said, your family is going to know change. Friends are going to hear change. And he said, whoo, girl, you have a testimony on you.
Hold on,
you're going to set some captives free.
Run that back for a second, because
okay,
back now, but it froze on us for a minute.
Okay.
When you were talking about Tim Green, he said you're going to be set free.
Yeah, he pulled me out of congregation. He pulled me out of a congregation, and he said, the Lord wants to say something to you. He operates in the prophetic. And which I didn't understand what the prophetic was,
I'll say what it is for people that don't, because you got
so it's somebody that can see, it's someone that has a word of knowledge. It's someone that can see in the spiritual things that you are either coming up against, or they can pull things from the future to back from now. So that's how Tim Green operates. He called me out of the congregation, and I've seen him speak so much. He's like one of my favorite pastors, but he looked at me and he said, you're not going to be in this bondage forever. And he looked at me and he said, your family's going to know you're changed. Your friends are going to know you're changed. And he said, girl, and he said, whoo, you have a testimony on you. And he said, you're going to set some souls free through your testimony. And he just started speaking life over me. And everything he said, everything that man said, he said more stuff. That's just what I'm getting right now. But everything he said has came to fruition. And I really didn't understand it now. I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. And I praise the Lord. It was on a video that my church did, and I was able to watch it. But that was a game changer a little bit for me. I was still in addiction, but it kind of rose that faith up in me, you know. So I was in addiction. I was shooting up, and this is the worst run that I did. I was shooting up, and I was in Nashville, and I was living with some drug dealers. And when I tell you I was living with some drug dealers, it was like all the movie, I don't know, it was like movie stuff, the things I was involved in. I was like, is this really happening right now? Like the drug deals I was seeing, it was just crazy. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, you know. And there were different points where I just got into the mix of some things. And me and a friend went to her boyfriend's house to a cabin to get high. And I ended up falling asleep because I've been up for days. And I woke up to them arguing. And he was, I'm going to just be very vivid about it because this is just what it is. He was shooting up. And when he shot up, I seen a demon rise up in his face. And when I seen that, I knew instantly, D, that that something was about to happen. And he had us barricaded in the cabin. He had chairs underneath the doors, and we couldn't get out. And he was arguing with Carrie about her cheating on him and stuff. And he got out a pistol, and he kept aiming it at her forehead. And he was going to kill Carrie that day. I seen it in his eyes. So I kept stepping in front of the pistol because I knew his anger wasn't rage to me. It was rage to her. Mm-hmm. But I kept stepping in front of the pistol over and over. And it was probably one of the scariest times of my life. I really thought he was going to kill her that day. If I wouldn't have stepped in front of that pistol like I did, he would have killed her that day. You know, when you see someone's eyes and they're going to murder, you just see that. I knew he was going to murder her. So something just shifted. It was a couple hours in, and he wouldn't let us out, and something just shifted, and he just got up and he said, come on, let's go. And he got us out, and I made it out alive. But something was like, okay. That's when something was like, you're not okay. You're not okay. So I reached out to Gina, and she is my spiritual advisor at Blue Monarch. And I kind of want to just say what Blue Monarch is. So I have been in a program called Blue Monarch for 3 years. Blue Monarch is solely ran off of donations. We are solely believed on the foundation of Jesus Christ. We believe that you are set free through the blood of the Lamb. We believe that healing is created through the blood of the Lamb. We don't think anything else other than you can be set free. You can be set free. And Miss Susan actually came up with a program off of a dream, and it's anointed. When you step on that property, D, you're just like, I'm home. You know, I could just cry thinking about it because it's just so special to me. And Jenny is the spiritual advisor there. So that's how I ended up getting into Blue Monarch. But Jenny was ministering to me when I was out in the streets of Nashville. And right when I started, I got an interview. I went for an interview. And she didn't tell me that I was in yet. And I got tied up into a prostitution ring. And I went with a guy thinking that we were like a couple or whatever that means. And I went into this prostitution ring, and I walked in, and it was just like the favor of the enemy was on me. Like I had favor. So I walked in, and I'm talking about, I was a trophy case. Like I was the trophy. And I got everything I wanted. People were practically almost bowing to me. It was very demonic. And we ended up doing some turns, some tricks, and if you want to call it that. And it's a whole nother world. Drug dealers would come in, and I mean, they were just like obsessed with me. It was just, I can't even explain it. But I got sober because I couldn't do anything unless I was high. So for a little window, I got sober, and it was like I snapped out of it for a second. And I was like, I gotta get out. So these girls came up to me and they were like, "You're going to take some pictures to sell on the internet." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And they were like, "Yes, you are." And they boned up on me to come to jump me, to hit me. And two of them came running up on me. And I just remember I'm about to get my butt whooped, and I'm not even playing. They froze, like just froze. And I was just kind of like, and I kind of walked around them. They didn't even turn or anything. I walked around them and I walked out. And when I walked downstairs, this random guy said, "Hey, you need a ride?" And I was like, "Yeah, I need a ride." So I got out, and right when I got out, Jenny called me. I mean, immediately, Jenny called me and she said, "You made it into Blue Monarch."
Wow.
And I was like, yes. I felt that that hope rise in me. We talk about that little speck of light. That's what rose in me at that moment. And some other things happened until I could, get to a place where I could withdraw. I had to go to a mental hospital to withdraw. And I was just fighting. But I did it. I made it into that mental hospital, and Blue Monarch came and got me.
Before you go to your next stage, I remember we was talking about this, and you said it was almost like you were going through demonic oppression in the hospital. Can you talk?
Oh, yes. Yeah. When I made it to the mental hospital, of course, I was seeing a bunch of shadows. And I was just seeing flickers of shadows. And I was actually it looked like seizures, but I wasn't having seizures. But I just remember being in the bed, and I was just convulsing in the bed and just screaming to the top of my lungs, "God, God," just screaming, "God, God," and I knew it wasn't normal, and I'm in a mental hospital. Nothing's normal. So I guess that was the best place for me to be at to do that,
Right.
But I was seeing stuff. I was just seeing just a lot of shadows, and was convulsing. And I was sleeping a lot too. I was sleeping a lot because I was staying up, I told you, like 6-7 days at a time, and was losing my mind. I ran into a Taco Bell one time and was screaming that the CIA was after me, and an ambulance came, got me, and almost punctured my heart because I was so high on methamphetamines. I was in back of an ambulance 6 times within a period of 6 months before I made it into Blue Monarch. I seen my heart explode after I did a shot at a hotel and dropped to my knees. And I haven't prayed in the spirit in months, years at that point. And I started praying in the spirit, and all of a sudden time stopped and I came out of it. Like there was just time. I mean, it was scary. It was a life or death situation every single day. Every single day. It was a life or death situation. So
you get to this place, and then what happens?
Well, the first thing that I felt was safety. I got on the property and I felt just a bunch of safety. And wow, I forgot about this. The Lord just gave me this. I got locked up December 18th, 2013. Yeah. I walked in at Blue Monarch December 18th, 2021. And when I walked in, they were having their Blue Monarch annual Christmas. So I didn't walk in to do paperwork. I walked into a bunch of presents, and I sat down and I got to open gifts. And I wasn't expecting that, but it was like the Lord was telling me, "You made it," So it didn't stop there. It wasn't just like butterflies after that. Within 3 days, they had some women come in, anointed women of God. I love them so much. They still minister to me today. They actually have taught me a lot. That's how I've been taught, was through these 2 women. They do a ministry called Inner Healing. It's Deliverance. And they came in and they broke off soul ties off me immediately. And then they broke off a spirit of anger. And it's so funny because you think deliverance is like, oh, but they were as calm as can be. And it was just a lot of repentance and renouncing. You know, what'd you say the other day? Your R&R?
Right. Renounce. Yeah.
So that's what happened. And practically they did a deliverance on me, and I really didn't even know what they were doing, but I didn't sleep for 3 days. And when after that deliverance, I fell asleep for the first time that night. And healing began, man. I started doing intense therapy.
So before we go into life after, I want to go back to some stuff, because you said a lot of good stuff. So
Yeah.
first off, in the beginning, you were talking about things that you've seen when you were younger that was terrifying, being around the kind of people that you were around. And we never talked about this, but I just want to apologize, for my actions back then. Even the time that, I had busted out, I don't know if it was your windows, but I know it was a place that you were staying at. You never even really said anything to me about that. I never apologized. I went back to my life just like nothing happened. But at that point in time in my life, this is not making excuses, but going back to the demonic torment that we were both up under at that time, because you was a little crazy too. Could not sleep until the Bible says the wicked gets no rest until they give into their sin.
Yeah.
And I was mad because of something stupid that night. And I just remember all these demonic thoughts. And I felt rest when I busted out your windows, And the thing is, like, I barely even flipped the bottle and the windows was busted. But I just want to apologize because I never did. And I don't know why.
Do you remember what you said after you did it?
I said I can sleep now.
Yep.
Because I was being.
And I remember my baby daddy being like, D seeing demons again.
Because it was normal, like to people that knew me, but I want to apologize about that. And then some other stuff I want to go back to that you said that was good that people need to know is that you were talking about it's almost like you had favor in the streets.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that sometimes people think that they're being blessed because certain things are working out, but not even realizing that the enemy gives you favor too. I can think back in times of my life where, y'all know I was broke then, but people would always have cocaine for me, always. I never had to worry about money because the enemy will give you favor in his world, just like God gives you favor in the kingdom that we're in now. Another thing that I like that you said, that how God will take a place where something bad happened and turn it into something good, even switch the days around. There's times where I've seen people, there's actually a lady that I need to get on my channel. I met her, I think it was like February the 5th, and I had gave her a word of knowledge that you was talking about before, that God was going to change her days. That was actually the day that she had got delivered. So for people that are watching this that have days that that are bad to them for whatever reason, or they have places that they had something bad happen to them, God can use that. He uses everything for our good. There was a time where I actually lost my mind at Stonecrest Hospital. 10, 15 years later, I ended up praying for people. I became a chaplain at that same hospital. Now, when you were talking about going back to what you were just talking about, before we get into some other stuff, you were talking about having soul ties being broke off of you. For people that don't know what soul ties are or what that means, can you talk about that?
Yeah. So in the Bible, I can't really remember where it's at. Maybe you can help me. David, it talks about David.
He had a soul tie with Jonathan.
Yep. And because a lot of people don't think it's a thing, but I'm telling you right now, it's a thing. And what happens is you have intimacy. Intimacy is anointing. Intimacy creates a spiritual tie to you and your husband. So what you do is you create all these ties to people, and they have influence on you. So what happened is when I went and did my soul ties, the people, I was having sex with men that were murderers, like no joke, like straight up murderers, and would tell you that to your face. And when I went, and it's just repentance. It's repentance. I had to call out who it was and where it was, and not all the time, but if the Lord gave it to me, I was led by the Holy Ghost. And I had to call out you know, where it is in the place. And I just repented for it. And it actually, it created a lot of freedom, a lot of heaviness came off me. And I was able, like I said, to go to sleep that night, you know. But yeah, I had to break soul ties because of those spiritual connections that I made through intimacy.
Okay, so for people that have tried, because you were talking about how you tried the church thing and it never really did work. For people that will be watching this that have tried to go to church and they tried certain things and it didn't work for them, what can you say has kept you over the years? Now, I know God has kept you. And another thing that I know too, that you might say, I know the accountability and the people is a big thing. But
Yep.
what, outside of that, what is keeping you from going back? Because it, it, I know you've had trials, I know you had tribulations. And sometimes people think when they try this, well, everything gets easy, but it don't always go like that. So can you talk about what has helped you over the past couple of years to stay where you are?
Yeah. So the Lord actually gave me a word. One of the words I'll always remember for the rest of my life. He told me, Kaylee, you have to have boundaries of steel. And when he told me that I had to have boundaries of steel, I was like, Lord, what does that mean? Well, the fact that I've opened myself up to so many sexual perverse and sexual sins and drugs and all these things, I have to be okay with surrenderance. I had to get to a spot in my walk where I was okay with letting these things go. And I'm meaning, like, I can't watch TV with sexual sins and sexual things that are on the TV. I can't listen to secular music, which there's a spiritual component to that, you know. But I have to be really careful on the environment that I'm going into. I have to be really careful about the people I am around. I have to be careful. And I do not play. Like, I will not put myself in that position because I will not allow the enemy to get any foothold around me and near me.
Come on.
I will not allow. I have to be careful in the things that I wear. I have to be careful in the way I walk because I can twist a little bit too much and it trigger me. But that's because I allowed these doors to be open in my life, and I cannot allow the enemy to get any foothold to me, and I won't allow it. So I had to be okay with giving some things up. But I'll tell you what, I would rather give up all that and spend the rest of my life being loved by a man named Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I would never give up this love, D, that I feel in my heart. It's just an overflow of joy and happiness and this pureness. I've never felt this pure in my life, you know, but it's a pureness that I can't even explain, you know. But I had to have boundaries of steel. And of course, I do have an accountability. I'm very blessed by that. But there are places that you can go, celebrate recoveries and things that you can go to get that accountability. And the Lord will make a way. He is a way maker.
That's right.
He will make a way. So yeah.
So when it
And you
comes
know,
to
if I would have kept on, this is something that I want to hit on, and this is pretty deep. But if I would have kept on that path of prostitution and stuff, and knowing my family had sexual sins of child abuse, molestations, and things like that, I really believe the Lord saves me. Because what if I would have kept on in years down the road or whatever, what if, D, I would have ended up doing some things like that? I would not have been able to live with myself, you know it?
right.
And I know the Lord saves me from that. But
So
that's what happens.
I know people that have been through what you went through. You know, drug addiction is really bad. It's all over the world, but in Nashville, we got a lot of people there that are still struggling with this because of different childhood trauma that has happened in their life. What was your recovery process like? Like after they did that prayer, were you just healed right after that? Like how did you get over that? Especially when it comes to forgiveness, because people have had people that were supposed to trust them. I mean, people that they were supposed to feel safe around, like family members or even pastors or teachers, and they've been hurt by these people. Like, how
Yeah.
did you get healed from that? And how did you find forgiveness for this?
So, like I said, I was blessed that I had no option. I was at a program where it was like do or die. But I got to a place where I just had to trust. And you know, it was in God's timing. So the God is Jesus is the Lord of process. He is a Lord of process, and he layers things like an onion. And he does that for a reason, because when he layers the first layer, you have to heal from that first layer. And then he's the second layer. You have to heal from that second layer. And it doesn't, sometimes you can have a supernatural healing, and sometimes it's a process, because you know what? Roots grow deep. And what he's trying to do is grow deep roots in you. So when they grow and grow and grow, you're standing firm like a tree. So you can bear fruit like a tree. So that's why the Lord is a God of process. So when I started growing those roots of love, a foundation, who God says about me, and I started, it's a difference in hearing it and then knowing it. I am loved by the Lord, not I am loved by the Lord. I am loved by the Lord. Right? It's a revelation. It's a 12-inch drop from your head to your heart. So when I started getting those drops down there, and I started really believing who I was in Jesus Christ and who he has said about me, that's when some supernatural love, that's when supernatural healing came, really, was when I started believing. When I started believing. And of course, I had to go through some really intense therapy. I went through a freedom prayer. I'm glad that we're talking about this, because I went through a freedom prayer, and that's when I remembered the molestation. And I was orally raped as when I was 3, and I didn't remember it, but I walked through a freedom prayer with my counselor, and the Lord showed me everything that happened. But he didn't show me everything at once. He showed me a clip of it at first, and he showed me where he was at. He showed me he was standing in a hallway, and he was crying. I mean, just crying when this was happening to me. Well, when I graduated Blue Monarch, I got into a Celebrate Recovery and went to our 5th step, and it's a timeline. Then he showed me the second part of that molestation, the oral rape, because I wasn't ready to see all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't ready. But when I was out of the program and went to a CR, then I was ready. And then that's when that supernatural healing came in. The Lord does everything for a reason. You have to trust the process. You have to trust. I say this all the time, and this has been really in my spirit right now, but trust without borders, that song, Oceans, trust without borders. When you start trusting the Lord in a supernatural way, it brings supernatural fruitions into your life. It brings healing into your life. You know, so that's really what happened. I ended up, you know, I didn't trust my counselor at first. And she just looked at me one day. She's going to laugh about this, but she just looked at me one day. She said, "You got to trust me. We have to do something." And it was because I trust people. But that's where, and you know, people have been hurt. But that's when you get into your prayer time, D, and you're like, "Lord, send me somebody I can trust. Send me somewhere that I can go to counseling." Those prayers that come from your heart, and the Lord will do it. He will do it. He sees you. He will lead you, you know? So, yeah.
Something I like about your story for people to get at. So you know that I have this this group for people struggling with addiction and stuff like that. But it's not just about people struggling with addiction. Some guys just want it, that are part of You Can Be Free. They want to just get close. They just want to have a closer relationship with Jesus. So it's a group full of different people, but between them and even my YouTube channel, I like to express, so people, I like for people to see things for exactly the way that they are when we're entertaining certain things. Now, when it comes to, I'm sure when you were, in a strip club and when you were living this life and you have met other women that were selling themselves too, I'm pretty sure a lot of women that you have met were, if they told you about this, were raped or molested or had some type of trauma. So people don't realize, like, when we are doing things like watching pornography, or when we're going to other
Yes.
countries, or even like getting involved in uh being a trick, buying women, we are coming into agreement with a woman's bondage. We're coming into an agreement with her pain. We're finding pleasure in somebody's trauma. Now, I'm not saying every woman that is in pornography had something happen to them, but I'm just saying a lot of women that are selling themselves, that are in strip clubs and that are in pornography, like, they're trying to find some type of escape from the pain that happened to them. And what we're doing when we're watching that is we're finding pleasure in their pain. But one thing I can say about you before I'm going to give you an opportunity to have any closing remarks. One thing I can say about you that I love about your change is I see how genuine it is, because we prayed last year, and I think we both were trying to see, okay, because you can always tell a lot about a person by how they pray. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both was trying to see, like, okay, is this genuine? Is this real? Because we was testing the spirit. And
Yeah.
Jay, I just remember you prayed your heart out, and we was just going back and forth, back and forth. And I think like 6 months after that, you have gave me a word that I'm actually living in now. But I don't even think that I've seen the full fruit of that word. But you were telling me to get ready and to pretty much level up, because God had a huge assignment.
It's an alignment with your assignment.
Right. And like I said, after that, I ended up doing some stuff in the homeless shelter. I ended up doing some stuff. Now, this is here in Tampa. I was working in the homeless shelter in Nashville, but I started doing some other stuff with the homeless here. And then I started doing some other stuff and You Can Be Free. And I'm just blessed that you were a part of that, and still is a part of that, because I know you intercede for me. And that's the thing. I don't have a lot of people that I'll invite on the prayer calls, because I don't trust it. If I ask somebody to come on and be a part of anything that I'm doing in prayer, is because I know they're real. It's like I know that they have been changed. And that's one thing I love about you, is I see the change, and you're so humble about it too. And you're very careful. And so I hope that this is inspire somebody, because like I said before, I seen you before, and you done said how you was, so I ain't gonna add nothing on to it.
Right.
But for anybody that is watching this, they may be in a situation like we were, or something different, childhood trauma, addiction, all of that stuff. Any last words that you have for somebody who's going to watch this, or anything that you didn't get to say that you feel like you should say right now?
Yeah. So I want to kind of say that through this process, and I do got a word at the end. Through this process, I ended up getting custody of my kids back. My son is not with me fully, but our relationship is full. I'm in school to be a history teacher. I'm in ministry. I pray, like I said, I'm just an intercessor. I love praying for people. But I've been involved with jail ministry, children's ministry. I'm involved with my church, and the Lord just radically changed my life. I'm completely transformed by the love of God. And my big thing is, don't give up. Go to the altar. Go to the altar. You don't think it's gonna work? So what? Go to the altar. Make a camp at the altar. Just like when who was holding on to that angel that wanted to be blessed?
Jacob. He said, I can't
Jacob.
let you go.
He wouldn't let go. And that's where I was for so long. You gonna bless me. I'm gonna get broke free. And I didn't give up. Keep reaching out. Oh, the enemy likes to be like, oh, you're annoying. No, you're not. Keep reaching out. Keep showing up, and keep fighting, because you're going to get blessed. You're going to have a breakthrough. You're going to have a breakthrough. You're going to have a breakthrough of your mind. You're going to have a breakthrough of your heart. You're going to have a breakthrough of your family. You're going to have a breakthrough through your worship. You're going to have breakthrough through your praise. You're going to have breakthrough.
Come on.
You know? and it's going to happen, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So don't give up. It was one of the hardest things I walked through, but today my babies, I can look at them right now. They're all swimming in a pool, but I'm a mom, not even a mom. I love my kids so much. I never thought I was going to love my babies like I do now. And I love them so much, so much. And I'm excited to wake up with them. I'm happy. The joy comes from the Lord. That is my joy, you know?
I do.
So, yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you for your story. I appreciate your time. And I'm truly, truly happy for you, praying for you, rooting for you, and all that stuff. And I want to go back to something you said, because I felt the presence of the Lord on that, because I just heard this from a mentor yesterday. And he was talking to me, and he was seeing all of a sudden that story that you was talking about when Jacob was wrestling with the Lord. And he said, I can't let you go until you bless me. And he wrestled with him all night. And so I just want to encourage anybody that is dealing with something, it doesn't feel like it's changing, it doesn't feel like it's breaking. Do not give up. Do not let
Don't give up.
You can be free, because who the Son has set free is free indeed. We love you, and we're